Hi, it's Colleen Schmidt from Divination Counseling Service here today to present a winning diurnal. Now, this particular chart, unlike my lottery winner chart, I actually have been working with for a while. And so I've really narrowed the time down. So I think we're dealing with a really good time. I think this chart will back that up. This particular win was not a lottery. It was a scratch off, but it was fairly substantial, as you'll see. So we'll look at that in a minute. Before I begin, as always, I want to say thank you. I want to especially thank my subscribers and all of you that have been hanging in there with me as I continue to change almost the format of what I'm doing with regards to once upon a time I did the astrology tarot. There will be none of those this month. I'm really going to try to stick with educational materials. As a matter of fact, I have a plan next week to start to introduce medical astrology. And one of the things I want to start off talking with next week, although I was dying to do it today, and I still might later on, is eating disorder asteroids and what to look for in a chart for eating disorders. So I'm going to start off looking at, as I've been, different things that can be advantageous to learn as astrologers. So with that said, I'm going to go and we're going to look at just the diurnal portion of this work. I do think it's a really good chart. I'm going to bring up the asteroids, the dial. I'm going to talk a bit about the Aries point. So let's jump in and look at this diurnal. So as you can see from our chart, okay, that the Aries point is very prominent in this chart, okay? And this was actually just went out in public, went to a corner store, which is very close by, and picked up a scratch-off ticket, which I think we're going to be able to see as well, and won a little bit of money. And so, I mean, it wasn't a great amount of money, but it wasn't insignificant either. So, a couple of things. When I looked at this, you always want to start with what rules this chart. And the irony is what rules this chart is Mars. And Mars is within range of cusping the 12th house. And we do talk about how when you have a house cusp, you really want to pay attention to it. Now, if it had been maybe one over, perhaps it would have been even larger, but it was fairly large, and I'll show you how we know that from the chart. Okay, so the next thing we would look at, of course, is the 11th house cusp, where ironically Bacchus falls. Now, this particular individual has been buying scratch-offs and lottery tickets a lot. Okay, so I'm not going to say addiction. Well, let's just say that it's done on a fairly regular basis. And he always talks about quitting, and he quits for a little while, and then he goes back. Sounds a little bit Bacchus to me. Anyway, I liked that. I also liked that even though it's about 2.5 degrees away from the 10th house, Ornamenta, okay, because it was a card. It was a scratch-off card. And I wanted to look at that. And then the other thing I wanted to bring up, now we do have a health withdrawal on the cusp of the 8th house. That was kind of going on that day. It was, he actually bought it when he kind of stopped working. I think the weather was bad that day. So the other thing was how close we have over reactions to the 7th house. And the interesting thing is that he may have overreacted. I don't know. I found out about the win after the fact. So I couldn't really answer that one. But I did want to point out how important it is just to kind of go around the chart and really just check out, like, here's an EOS that is, in aspect to the third house. Okay. The interesting thing is that this particular individual knows that I wanted a winning chart. I have been begging him to let me know when he wins. It's really important for me and the astrology because I am familiar with that chart. The other thing here, this is important to the win. Do you notice that 1227, okay, 1251? So Uranus was cusping the second house. Now, ironically, Mars rules this chart, not Uranus. But I just thought it was really interesting that Uranus actually showed at the cusp because it was a sudden win. I mean, like I say, this person's really into this, but when you're scratching those things off, it's like you either win or you don't win, and it's a sudden thing when you scratch it off and find it. So I thought that was rather interesting, okay? So I'm going to go on with this just for a moment. So I switched over to Dial, and this is me gathering math. So we'll talk about that in a second. But let's look instead actually, I don't even have to switch. Let's go back. Let's look first at the reports. So in the aspect list, I wanted to see what aspects are going on that would have highlighted this chart. Now, remember that the chart is ruled by Mars. And I thought that the Mars conjunct Venus was very helpful. The contraparallel to Uranus. I thought the Mars conjunct Juno is somewhat helpful. So, but I didn't really, when I looked at Mars, I was unimpressed. What did impress me was Jupiter. And how Jupiter fell in this chart. It contraparallels the sun. It parallels the moon. It's conjuncting the Neptune, but it's just the way it fell with and look at this, the semi-sesquiquadrate. I can't say these words, but an inconjunct to Apollon. But that is going to get stronger. So I come in here, and the first thing that I see, other than the Venus conjunct Mars, okay, that makes sense. It was going on. Mars rules this chart, okay? But what really did it for me was Jupiter. Okay, so let me show you what else I saw here. See, it's not always going to jump off the paper at you. Okay, so here we have Jupiter, which is actually about 21 degrees 10 minutes. Now, you don't have to be that exact, and you'll see down here, look at Apollon. Look at the white moon, Selena, okay? Really interesting that Jupiter equals Apollonia. So that's like greatest success, or that exponentially makes it better. So that's what turned that card, instead of only being worth maybe $50 or $100, what helped it be worth more was the fact that Apollonia is involved. But not just Apollonia, because one of the things that I did was I did the math on Jupiter. And when I did the math on Jupiter, I came up with an axis point of 21, 10, mutable, because that's what this is. It equals 610 fixed. Now, when I add to 610 fixed, because it was the easiest, 2230, I get 2840 all the way to here, okay? So I used these numbers, okay? Look at that strategy of the sun. Now, there's a lot of asteroids that are going to be pulled up here that don't have a great deal of meaning in what we're looking at. So we can eliminate them. As an astrologer and who works with thousands of asteroids, I highly advise slimming it down to the ones that really make the most sense. Okay? So, with that said, we are, and I like this trans-Neptunian Pluto, trans-Neptunian Venus thing going on here too for a winning chart. But here's what I drug up. First of all, in this axis that we've just done, it's created that axis for you, which is really wonderful. Not only do you have Jupiter equaling Apollonia, but this person knew I was doing it for astrology. And trust me when I tell you, it's been weeks in the making. He normally wins much more often than this, but because I wanted it for astrology, it wasn't happening. So it was very slow Urania. I was slow to get my information. I thought that was really cute, and it was right in the chart. Like I say, I've been working with this chart to narrow down and to rectify the time. So I have been working on this one. So other things that played out in this were, I liked that it had an Isis, and I believe that's right up here too. Yeah, it has an Isis also up here. And Isis means that it was pieces. And what you don't know, but I do know, is that this was one of several cards. I know him. I know he buys a couple at a time. So it was Isis, a piece of, one of. Fair, yeah, it was fair, and that's in there. Check, because it's money. Apollonia, which we already spoke about. Astrology, which we already spoke about. But how about this one? Nakbar. Nakbar. Nakbar is our neighbors. Yes, he literally bought this card down the road, maybe 4 or 5 places, like a half a block, okay? So it was a neighborhood situation where he actually won this money. So this was not only a good chart, but this was a great example of a winning chart. So let me come back. So I am back, and I want to thank you for watching this very short video. I hope it was helpful. I actually got a winning video, and that was, I've been waiting for this one. So I could actually show you some of the things that jumped out when we looked at this particular chart. So thank you all for watching the video, and stay tuned because I believe my next video will be a medical video on the eating disorders. So I don't know that I'm going to show an example of a chart, more than I'm actually going to talk about things that we would look for in a chart. So until next time, as always, I wish you only happy readings.